Coasters are born, and coasters die. Sometimes they're even given proper burials. Fans lament their favorite coasters being out of their lives forever. But sometimes, the coaster gods will answer the prayers of desperate enthusiasts, and a coaster we all thought was dead and gone makes a comeback. This resurrection comes in all forms, and on this Halloween day 2022, I will tell the story of 13 coasters that came back from the dead. First off, thanks to Blake Waller 5 and Matt Potter 28 for this video idea. I reached out to my Instagram followers for a good Halloween video idea, and this was my favorite one that came through. I also asked my Instagram followers for coasters that they would like to see on this video, so I appreciate all the feedback, and you all helped me put together a good list. Number 13, Wild Mouse at Luna Park in Sydney, Australia. This rare wooden wild mouse opened at Luna Park in 1959. It was removed in 1970, went to another park in Australia, and came back in 1995. This was following a 7-year closure for the park, having been renovated over the last couple years, and alongside the wild mouse was a brand new aero looper called Big Dipper. But the noise of this coaster caused complaints and legal claims, and on top of that, weather was bad and attendance was down, and within 1 year, the park was closed again. In 1999, a plan was set in motion for the park to reopen, and this would be under the condition that Big Dipper would be removed. While the legal battle was going on, the park operated on some days under strict conditions from the court. This included the time during the 2000 Summer Olympics. Another 4 years would pass, but there was agreement to redevelop and restore the park, and it reopened in April of 2004. The legal battles would not stop, facing new challenges in 2005 and 2007, but the court ruled in favor of the park. The future of this seaside park may have been in constant doubt for the better part of 3 decades, but Luna Park and Wild Mouse have been operating for the last 18 years. Number 12, Silver Comet, Niagara Amusement Park in Grand Island, New York. In 1999, Martin's Fantasy Island got their signature coaster, Silver Comet. This CCI wooden coaster stands 82 feet tall and has 2,800 feet of track, a major permanent coaster for a park that otherwise resembles a carnival. In 2016, Martin's Fantasy Island was acquired by the Apex Parks Group, but 4 years later, Apex ran into financial problems. They filed for bankruptcy and closed their parks. This included Indiana Beach as well, but that park was quickly acquired by Chicago businessman Gene Staples. But Fantasy Island remained unsold and its rides were sold off. Both Max's Doggy Dog Coaster and Crazy Mouse were moved to Boomers in California, but they were never built. Silver Comet is not a portable coaster, so it remained on site, waiting to see what would be done with the land. In May 2021, Gene Staples came to the rescue after all, agreeing to lease the property and operate the park. It would reopen in August 2021 as Niagara Amusement Park and Splash World. At first, just with the water park, but the amusement park was repopulated with rides, and it reopened along with Silver Comet in 2022. Number 11, Screamer at Scandia, Ontario in California. The Scandia parks in California are mostly family fun centers, but the park in Ontario had a full amusement park, featuring the 90-foot E&F Miler coaster, Screamer. This ride had a much-deserved reputation of being an airtime machine. Rumors of its demise had been ongoing for years, the owner citing lawsuit abuse as the main problem. In 2019, the park was sold, and the buyer had no interest in continuing its operation. February 3rd would be its final day, and the Screamer, along with the rest of the park, was dismantled. The rides were put up for sale, Screamer being the most expensive item at $950,000. Years passed, and we heard nothing. It seemed like this California classic would be a relic of the past. But in April 2021, Traders Village in Grand Prairie, Texas announced that they had bought the ride and plan on reopening it the next year. The coaster would now be called Prairie Screamer, and it's set for a fall 2022 opening. Number 10, Legend at Arnold's Park in Iowa. Arnold's Park opened in 1889, right on the shore of Okoboji Lake. It is home to one of the oldest wooden coasters in the country, Legend, opening in 1930. This had always been a privately owned park, but in 1999, the owner at the time, Chuck Long, sold the park to a developer. The plan was to raise the whole park and build lakeside housing, along with a hotel and retail development. So many parks have met their demise in this way, but Arnold's Park was such a beloved park for the locals, so the developer decided to make a deal. They would sell the land to the Great Lakes Maritime Museum for $5.5 million, but they had to raise the money within 1 month. The community mobilized and launched a Save the Park campaign, offering personalized bricks for a future walkway for $500 and a personalized bumper car for $5,000. It looked like they were going to fall short, but a late surge got them up to $7.25 million. The museum was able to pay the developer. They formed a new non-profit group to manage the park, and Chuck Long donated the rides so the park and the legend could live on. Number 9. Zippin' Pippin at Libertyland in Memphis, Tennessee. The Pippin roller coaster opened in 1915, the main attraction of the local fair in Memphis. In 1928, it took on tornado damage, but it was rebuilt even bigger than before. Decades passed, and the city of Memphis built an entire theme park around the coaster called Libertyland. The coaster was renamed Zippin' Pippin, and it quickly became the favorite coaster of rock and roll legend Elvis Presley, renting the park out for him and his friends and marathoning this old wooden coaster. By 2005, the park ran into financial problems and had to shut down, putting Zippin' Pippin up for auction. It was purchased and sold multiple times between 2006 and 2009, trying to find a place for it to be relocated. In 2010, city officials from Green Bay, Wisconsin came to Memphis, trying to see if it would make sense to move this to their small public park, Bay Beach. Turns out, it was not in good enough shape for relocation, so they did the next best thing. They bought the design and hired the Gravity Group to build a replica. There was some infighting among city officials. Some wanted the project, but others thought it was a waste of money. In the end, the mayor got his way, and the new Zippin' Pippin opened in 2011. Selling rides for just $1, this was immediately successful right out of the gate, and continues to be so 11 years later. Number 8. Colossus at Hyde Park in Germany. This was a groundbreaking coaster when it opened in 2001, being the first prefabricated wooden coaster from Intamin. These wood pieces were laser cut in a factory and delivered to the park. They could simply put this together with little effort. This would also deliver a smoother ride for a massive coaster. It was expensive, but it would be an investment to avoid constant maintenance and offer their guests a world-class ride. Colossus operated for 15 years, but in 2016, it was shut down. Hyde Park made the announcement that inspectors found a major problem with the track, and if they wanted to repair it, it would cost over 10 million euros. A year and a half would pass, the wooden coaster standing dormant and broken. But in January of 2018, Hyde Park announced that all the track would be replaced at the cost of 12 million euros. In 2019, after 3 long years and its future in doubt, Colossus was back. It was now Colossus, Kampf der Giganten, or Battle of the Giants, featuring a new theme and this tree monster eating the track during the ride's finale. Number 7. Batman the Ride at Six Flags New Orleans in Louisiana. The most well-traveled B&M coaster is this Batman clone, opening as Gambit at Thrill Valley in Japan way back in 1995. This park closed in 2002 and it was up for sale. Six Flags jumped on it, as it was perfect for their newest acquisition. The park formerly known as Jazzland had its lease sold to Six Flags in 2002, and in 2003 the park had a new name, Six Flags New Orleans, as well as a new coaster, Batman the Ride. 2 years later, the park was devastated by Hurricane Katrina. The park was flooded to the point where it would be too expensive to reopen. It took weeks for the water to recede and there was too much damage. By 2007, Six Flags announced they wanted out of their 75-year lease, also motivated by the fact that New Orleans was one of their least profitable parks. After sitting idle for 16 months, Six Flags determined that Batman the Ride was one of their only salvageable rides, having an elevated station, as well as supports that were coated in a paint that prevented corrosion. In April 2008, almost 3 years after its last day of operation in New Orleans, Batman would take the short trip west to San Antonio, reopening as Goliath in the Fiesta Texas parking lot. Number 6. WHIZZER at Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois. The WHIZZER opened with the park back in 1976, and it was a beloved family coaster classic. So, when the park announced that 2002 would be its final year, needing to make way for their new B&M flying coaster, it did not go over well with the park's fans. Normally, parks would scoff and say, "Too bad, we made our plans and this is what we're gonna do." But apparently, there were so many complaints that came flooding into the park, they couldn't just ignore it. This caused them to reconsider. WHIZZER was going to be retired on August 11th, but on August 8th, the park announced the WHIZZER could stay after all, and the B&M flying coaster would be put on the plot of land occupied by Shockwave, the 14-year-old aero looper. We don't know if this was a big publicity stunt, or if they really wanted to take out the WHIZZER. But, at least on the surface, it appears the fans of Six Flags Great America brought this coaster back from the dead. Number 5. Chimera at La Feria Chapultepec in Mexico City. This was the world's first coaster with 3 loops, and it moved around a lot during its life. From the German fair circuit, to Malaysia, to England, then to Mexico. It seemed to find a permanent home at La Feria in 2007. People raved about how intense this coaster was. It seems like maybe La Feria was letting it run at its max potential. But in 2019, there was a devastating accident that caused 2 fatalities after the back car derailed. The park's operating permit was revoked and it hasn't opened since. It looked like this accident could be the end of the Schwarzkopf. But just over 1 year later, it was purchased by Gene Staples, and it was given a new home at Indiana Beach. It's taken a long time to build this, but it looks to be almost complete and ready for a 2023 opening. Number 4. Desperado at Buffalo Bills in Primm, Nevada. What was once the world's tallest coaster has slowly fallen from grace. Buffalo Bills had this operating very consistently, but over the years, it became more and more sporadic. It got to be where you were lucky to pass by and see it open. In October 2019, it was closed and nobody knew when it would reopen. 5 months later, the COVID pandemic shut down the whole resort. Desperado was already on its last leg, but with Buffalo Bills also being in trouble, it really seemed like this was toast. But about a year ago, Desperado was seen testing, and this seemingly dead coaster was still showing a heartbeat. Number 3. Thunder Run at Kentucky Kingdom in Louisville, Kentucky. In 2010, Six Flags left Kentucky Kingdom for dead. Coming off their bankruptcy, they wanted to unload this park that had some issues leading to its closure, that being immense competition from Holiday World and Kings Island, and a 2007 accident that led to a teenager's feet being severed. Six Flags harvested some of their rides for other parks, and then walked away from their lease. The park was now back in the hands of the Kentucky State Fair Board. The remaining rides that couldn't be moved were in danger of being scrapped, including the 1990 Din Wooden coaster, Thunder Run. T2 was another coaster that Six Flags left behind that could have been moved. But everyone knew the future of Thunder Run depended on the future of Kentucky Kingdom. Ed Hart was one of the park's owners before Premier Parks and Six Flags took over in 1998, and he did not want to see this park be demolished. He formed a group of investors and tried to negotiate with the board, but it didn't work. The Cook family, the owners of Holiday World, tried their own plan, but that didn't work. Lucky for us, Ed Hart was persistent, and in 2012, he submitted a plan that the board approved. After 4 years of standing but not operating, and seeing most of the other coasters in the park get taken out, Thunder Run reopened with the park on May 24, 2014. Number 2. Rocket at Playland Park in San Antonio, Texas. When you think of San Antonio parks, you think of Six Flags Fiesta Texas and SeaWorld. But during World War II, a new park would emerge in San Antonio, this being called Playland Park. 4 years after it opened, it would open its first and only coaster, Rocket. This PTC wooden coaster stood 78 feet tall and sported 3,200 feet of track. The ride would remain popular, but in 1980, Playland closed its doors. Rocket stood idle for 4 long years, but in 1984, it had a suitor. This would be Knoebel's Amusement Resort, willing to relocate the ride and rebuild it. But there was one major problem. There was no blueprints for this coaster. Every board had to be numbered so it could be put back together. In 1985, Knoebel's employed 34 trucks to move the ride up north, and with the help of Charles Din from the Din Corporation, this was able to open up quickly. The Rocket was renamed Phoenix, a very appropriate name, and it continues to stun riders with its amazing airtime, winning the Golden Ticket Award for Best Wooden Coaster year after year. It's hard to imagine this coaster standing idle at Playland Park. No blueprints, year by year passing by, but it did, and we owe a lot to Knoebel's for saving this awesome Woody. So go scrounge up $3.50 and catch a ride. Number 1. Leap the Dips at Lakemont Park in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Back in the early 20th century, the side friction figure 8 coaster was very popular. Most of these are dead and gone, but there is one that remains, Leap the Dips. It was opened in 1902, and it's considered the oldest operating coaster in the world. During its 120 years of life, it's been shut down 3 different times. First in 1936, most recently from 2017 to 2020. This one was due to Lakemont Park being rebranded as a family entertainment location with some amusements. But the one I want to focus on occurred between 1985 and 1999. The ride was shut down because of concerns over the structure, and Lakemont did not have the money to fix it. Rather than let this ancient coaster be demolished, the American coaster enthusiasts stepped in and raised the money to save it, forming the Leap the Dips Foundation, accepting private donations, and utilizing 8 different banks, plus the Progress Fund, all working in concert to make sure Leap the Dips would see another day. 12 years later, in 1997, the restoration project finally began. This was back open to the public in 1999. In the meantime, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places and designated a National Historic Landmark. In 2002, ACE made it a coaster landmark, a coaster they directly helped save, and this coaster is still in operation as the world's oldest coaster. That's all for coasters that rose from the dead. I left some off this list, so if you have any others that should be on here, let me know in the comments below, and maybe next year I can do a part 2. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please consider giving me a sub. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you're into baseball also. Everyone have an awesome Halloween, and thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.